Hey guys, welcome to Wrestling Daze and welcome to this very special video. We're going to talk about Hulk Hogan and what are your thoughts? What do you think about him? Obviously, this is coming off the back of that segment on Monday Night Raw, and I think it might have caught a few people off guard. I think some people maybe weren't expecting the reaction to be so negative. I would actually class myself in that group because for me, he is someone we've seen before, but he's always had mixed reactions. This was the first time I can remember where it was fairly unanimous that it was a very negative reaction. And I do think there's a few things at play. I think we're living in the post-Vince scandal, and I think that we're in a new WWE. And as I said at the time, anyone that's got baggage, anyone that's carrying these controversies, I just don't think they're welcome in this new, fresh beginning. This is the Triple H era. This is the Netflix era. This is the Renaissance era. And I think WWE fans are really looking, just as the company is looking, to kind of distance itself from any of that baggage from the past. And Hogan is very much baggage from the past. He's also a legend of the past, and that cannot be ignored. We can't erase Hogan from history, and actually I wouldn't want to, because I am someone that believes in second chances. I am someone that believes in redemption, and I personally am not looking to erase Hulk Hogan. I have Hogan figures. When I went to Florida, I went to his beach shop. Like, I would be lying if I was to sit here and say I'm done with Hogan, I don't want anything to do with Hogan. I still have a lot of affection for Hogan. He made those racist comments. He apologized for them. And honestly, some people accepted that apology and some people didn't. And I think he made a lot of mistakes, not only the comments themselves, which of course was the biggest mistake, but it always felt like his apology, it always felt like he was very sorry for himself. Normally, the apology was very quickly followed up with it's been very difficult for me. You know, people that know me know that this is out of character. It was more about him than it was the impact those comments had had. I don't feel like the advice that he's received has been very good. I don't think the way that the situation has been managed has been very good. I don't think he has been very good over the years. I think wrestling was a dog-eat-dog world, and I think Hogan partook in that. And I think, you know, there's lots of stories of how he wouldn't put other people over. He was trying to protect his spot. And part of me does understand that. Part of me understands that it was a cutthroat world. It was a dog-eat-dog world. Maybe part of that still exists now. But, yeah, all you keep hearing is this steady slew of just negativity and bad stories about Hogan. He wouldn't put over Brett. He wouldn't put over Shawn. How he wouldn't allow Jesse to form a union. Like he went and told Vince about it and got that shut down. About how they only brought the Warrior in so that he could get the win back. That he lost to Warrior at WrestleMania 6 and he wanted to get that win back in WCW. And just petty things like that. And of course, we've all heard about the lies and the exaggerations, and maybe he is just a really bad person, right? Maybe that is the truth, but I would like to think it isn't. And I would like to think that he's a good person, and I'd like to think that he's a thankful person and a religious person and someone that wants to make amends. And, you know, we've seen how Shawn has been able to turn his life around. I would love to believe that we can do this with Hogan. But honestly, sitting here right now, I just don't know, because it really feels like there's a mountain to overcome. It really feels like he is just, I don't want to say unsavable, but I wouldn't even know how you go about doing it. I wouldn't even know what you would have to do to try and get him back into any sort of good graces. There is just so much water under the bridge that I understand people turning around saying, just walk away, just part, just you go live your life. WWE will live their life. You're a legend. You'll always be spoke about in historical importance, but it's time for us to just move forward. Like, I really do understand that. I do get that. But I would love to think there's another way, but I don't know. So, yeah, I don't know if I've kind of answered the question as to why did the crowd boo, but just so we're on the same page, the racist comments that emerged, when did they come out? 2015? So 10 years ago. But I never felt like we properly addressed that and moved past that, right? Then, of course, he obviously supported Donald Trump recently. We were in a blue state. We were in a Democrat state. We were in California. And, of course, he's just been a big supporter of a Republican. And it's one thing to say, oh, I'm going to vote Republican. It's another thing to be on the conference stage, right? To actually be appearing at rallies and all this kind of stuff. So he wasn't just a Republican. He was a high-profile Republican that was attending like key events, standing side by side with the Republican presidential candidate, Donald Trump. And honestly, that will have upset a lot of people. Like, it would be silly to think that that didn't play a part, okay? And then also, I think the lies, the stories, this steady slew, this steady stream of negativity that just always seems to be around in YouTube videos or Twitter comments or shoot interviews, or it's just very rare you hear anything good about Hulk Hogan. And I think it's all just built up, and it exploded on Monday. Do I think everyone would react that way? Probably not. If we were in a red state, Texas or something, I think he would get a much more positive reaction. Same if we were in Tampa, but I don't doubt that they would still be mixed reactions. So yeah, honestly, this is why I wanted to do this video, because I've got my thoughts as to where we are with him and what I would like to see. But I would like to know your thoughts. And I'm really hoping we're going to hear from some Hulkamaniacs as well, some people that were really on board with Hogan and how they feel now. I think that could be interesting. And I think there'll be some people that are loyal and that are forgiven. I think there'll be a lot of people that just can't, don't want to, or just can't. And I don't know what to expect from this video. This is genuinely a video where I'm going into it going, I don't know what the next 20 odd minutes is going to hold, but I'm very interested to find out. So let's get into it, shall we? Sarah making it very clear, just never appear again. Just don't want anything to do with Hulk Hogan. Q Hicks said Hogan, like Vince, could be written off and I wouldn't question it or even care. Big Mike Talk said, I'm done with seeing Hogan on my TV. He adds absolutely nothing to proceedings. Raymond said, Daze, how do I feel about Hogan? Well, personally, I'm not a fan anymore. Moving forward, I don't think they should show him. If he's going to get booed out the building, WWE shouldn't use him. Fitzy said, I believe WWE need to leave him be. Fans made it very clear how they felt about him. I don't think it would go over well if they tried to use this and do a heel character that I've heard rumours about. Yes, there are rumours, and they're only rumours, that WWE, next time they use him in a public setting, might actually lean into the boos a little bit more and present him a bit more of a heel character. And honestly, I mean, I think it's bad heat that he's getting. It's not heat like Kevin Owens gets. It's not heat like Drew McIntyre gets or Dominic Mysterio gets. This is bad heat that's coming from some very serious, very real situations that have happened, comments that he has made. And yeah, I agree. I don't know that would be the right way forwards. Chris said, hopefully we never see him again. Vince Lombardi said, Daze, I think he's a piece of poop and I never want to see him again. Vento Box said, as a black man who loved and respected Hogan, the whole situation sucks. I obviously don't like what he said, but he's done so much for the industry that I love. I personally chose to forgive what he said. It's been years, and he deserves a second chance in my opinion. We've forgiven worse. I really love that comment. I think that's the kind of comment I was looking for, to be honest. That kind of real insight. So Vento Box, thank you. I really appreciate that. Watson said, I honestly never expected the boos, so it felt a bit uneasy. Do you remember the first news about Vince came out the same day? He opened SmackDown, got a monster reaction as if nothing had happened. I just expected Hogan would be welcomed. The one thing I don't remember with that is what news came out when Vince was on SmackDown. I don't think it was the detailed lawsuit. I sort of feel like the allegations might have come out, but with allegations, it's one person's word against another. I think it was the lawsuit and the text messages and actual evidence, tangible evidence, that really was the nail in Vince's coffin, because I think there was always a lot of allegations against Vince, but it was always this person's word against that person's word. As soon as we had text messages that were in that lawsuit that were, checked and, allegedly from Vince, which, I don't know that he's ever disputed, actually. I think I've never seen that disputed, but that was something tangible. And I think fans, I don't think had seen any of that. I think when he was on the show, it was before any of that had emerged. So at that point, it was still like someone's word against someone's words. And there'd been lots of allegations against Vince in the past. This just felt like just more. And not only that, but I don't know if everyone had heard by the point that Vince had been on the show. I don't know if everyone had had a chance to see the detail. I don't think there's any doubt now, if Vince was to come walking out on WWE TV, he would be, I mean, I don't want to say there'd be a riot, but he would be booed out the building. I have no doubt about that. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. I don't think it would be a mixed reaction or anything along those lines. There are things in this world that you just cannot get away with. And I just think the fans, for as much as Vince has done, I think the fans just would not tolerate him being there, to be honest, now. I don't even think that's controversial. I really think that he would get that negative reaction. I don't know how far people would go. I don't know if people would get up and leave. I think some would, actually. I think if Vince was there, I think some would actually get up and leave. But the rest of it would be overwhelmingly negative now. So just too much water under the bridge. And we might be in that situation with Hogan as well. Mostly Peaceful Dude said Hulk Hogan is a wrestling icon, an American icon. I know you don't care about that. Willing to stand up for what he thinks is right. Hogan is the man. I don't know what you mean about the I know you don't care about that. I wonder if that's based on the comment that I've made previous, or it might not even be aimed at me. I did say as I was growing up, I was never a big Hogan fan. I never had any issue with him, but he was always Mr. America, and I'm from the UK. So for me, him against Warrior, I was always more into Warrior. Him against Andre. Andre was so big, so impressive, so, like awe-inspiring that actually for WrestleMania 3, I was on Andre's side. Hogan against Macho Man, I found Macho Man to be more charismatic. I wanted Hogan against Sergeant Slaughter. I don't think I really cared who won out of Hogan and Sid, to be honest. I wanted Hogan over Yokozuna. So there was times where I did support Hogan. But yeah, I mean, look, I'm in the UK. The American thing's never going to really resonate with me, is it? So, but he's a wrestling icon. Absolutely. I mean, you cannot tell the history of WWE or wrestling without talking about Hulk Hogan. A little bit of a fan said there are things that people say that they can never take back. Hogan should go and live his life and not be in the spotlight ever. Big Bam said, I feel like Hogan has alienated his fan base. There's really no apology that will suffice. It seems like he's been grasping at the slightest of things just to stay relevant and sell whatever his new venture of the month is. I feel like he needs wrestling more than it needs him. And that's a really good point, actually. Because I also feel like every time I see him, he's trying to sell me something. I think he was on Ariel Helwani, and he was only there because he was trying to sell some marijuana-infused items. And then, of course, I feel like we've only just seen him just so he can sell his beer. And where's the images of him giving advice? He lives in Florida. Why does he never rock up to NXT? Why does he never, if he cares about wrestling, he cares about the current product. I mean, he's in Florida. He's got a shop in Orlando. We never see him around. I mean, he's been at the very top of the industry. I know it's a very different world now, but he's got so much advice that he could give. He's been in so many situations. How does he never go and speak to the NXT talent? Maybe he does. Maybe we just never hear about it. But we never hear about it. I never see pictures of him. I mean, how many pictures have we had of CM Punk going to NXT recently? And CM Punk's only been back in WWE a year and a bit. And Hogan has been under contract with WWE for years and years and years. I just don't get it. I don't understand. I really feel like he doesn't really care so much about the current product. I feel like he is just sort of using the wrestling fans to sell his stuff in his shops to keep his brand going. I think there is a lot of selfishness, to be honest. And I think fans see that. I think fans are aware that he just only pops up when he's trying to sell something. So I really do understand why people are done and they're washing their hands of him. He has not helped himself at all. At all. Las Vegas Matt said, I think Hulk Hogan is toxic. I think he's racist. I think he's out of touch with reality. I think he's an egomaniac who is eating from the dish of karma that he created for himself over the past 5 decades. WWE fans haven't and won't forgive his racist and sexist comments, and I am shocked that WWE want to do business with him. Do you know, you make a good point, though, because I'm guessing the numbers for that beer must have been doing something. I mean, we live in a world where money talks, and I think WWE might have jumped into bed with him because, financially that is, because of the fact that the beer was selling well in the markets it was in. They saw an opportunity to get a piece of that pie, really. And so I've got to think that it's probably been selling well. Well, if it's selling well and it has his image all over it, that's got to mean that there's still plenty of people out there willing to back and support Hogan. I do think that if we were in a different market, the reaction wouldn't have been as strong, like as negative. I think it would have been more mixed. But there's clearly problems. There's clearly an issue. Clearly Hulkamania is not running wild anymore. So it's right that we have this conversation. Chris said, hello, Daze. Hello, Chris. Even when I first started watching WWE as a child, for some reason I didn't like the huckster, but I did always appreciate what he had done for the business. After that Raw, I'm pretty sure WWE is wishing that they never got in business with him after that gross tasting beer. Do you know, I do want to try it, actually. It's a WWE beer, and I know it's a Hogan beer, but it's quite exciting that there is a beer that is sort of wrestling related. It's a light beer. I like light beers, actually. So it was one that I was wanting to try. But I mean, with everything that's happening now, I don't know that it's still high up on my list of things to try. I mean, the fans have kind of really made me think again, I mean, I went to Florida last year and I went to Hogan's Beach Shop. And I was looking around at some of the stuff in there, and golden era is the era that I love. But I mean, this has sent a real message. I think this has sent a real message that wrestling fans are just not on board with him anymore. But again, is it all markets or is it specifically California? If we went to Texas, if we went to Tampa, would he get a better reaction? Because he was part of WrestleMania 37. And the responses to him at WrestleMania 37 weren't overwhelmingly negative. They certainly weren't overwhelmingly positive, but they weren't overwhelmingly negative like we saw on Monday. But then again, we were in Tampa. That's where he's from. That's where he lives. So it's probably going to be, one of the more pro-Hogan crowds. Don't know. It's really got me thinking. Matt said, I've never been a fan of him. I'm not sure why I didn't like him as a kid in the late 80s, early 90s. I never hated him until the last decade or so. I must admit his lies amuse me. I appreciate that the business would look very different without his contributions. Anthony said, I was a fan of his. I think he needs to step away. Maybe have a backstage role, teaching and supporting the younger WWE talent. He just doesn't seem to want to do that. He's got the opportunity to do that. I mean, how could he not? For someone with his experience, I can only imagine the door has been open for a long time, but he just doesn't walk through it. Junkwax Obsessed said there is a market for Hulk, but they need to figure that out before they toss him to the wolves again. Paul I said, personally, I don't have anything against his legacy and what he's done for wrestling. As an icon of the industry, he deserves praise in what he's done. However, when you do things that don't add up, do racial comments and attach to Trump, it harms what the public thinks. Ev Dog Dino said, Hulk has a place in history of the business, just like Vince does. Agreeing to part ways is not an attempt at erasing that legacy, and I think both parties just need to shake hands and walk in different directions. His beer sponsorship complicates this slightly. Sanan said, I think he's a racist old man who shouldn't be on our screens. Chalky White said, apart from when I was 5, I've never been a huge Hogan fan. However, we would have none of this without him. Facts don't care about your feelings. He deserves our respect as a talent. Pro WrestleX said, I grew up in the 90s in a European country where Hogan was well known. Personally, I've never really been a fan of his work, but I acknowledge his contributions to the business. The booze depended on a lot of factors that he brought on himself. One tip, listen to the audience. David said, no more Hogan, please. Callum said, I don't like him. I would turn Hogan heel. I Am the Colour Red said he doesn't deserve to be erased. Have him in vignettes. Recognise his legacy, but he's not needed on TV. Let the current superstars fill the time. I'm not sure why we was advertising a new era by bringing out stars who retired years ago, who won't be on the show moving forwards. Well, I think nostalgia is very important. It's a new era, but it doesn't mean we have to forget about the previous eras. Like, we're never going to forget about Stone Colds. You know, we're never going to forget about The Rock. And I sort of feel like, where would you draw that line? Like, do we never talk about Bruno Sammartino anymore? He's not done anything wrong. But he was Mr. WWE in the 60s and into the 70s. So I do understand why it's a new era, but we still pay respects. I think paying respects is important. I think, you know, honouring those that have come before and, you know, built the company to where it is now. You know, without their contributions, we wouldn't be where we are now. I am a big believer in that. It's Hogan specifically, though, as to, you know, did we need him? Did we need him? And to be honest, would we even have had him if he wasn't trying to promote a beer? And that also leaves a bit of a bitter taste in the mouth. I'm not talking about the beer. I'm just talking about the fact that, you know, would he even have been there if it wasn't for that? Maybe he would. We have seen him previous. He was there at WrestleMania. He was there when Mean Gene passed away, for example. So maybe he would have been. Robin said, to be honest, I started watching wrestling after the Hogan era and after his glory days, so I didn't get to experience how big he was. Feeling old days, always. But I'm not a fan of the remarks he made or his political views. Political side of it is not that important, to be honest. Do you see a role for him in WWE? I think if there is a role for him, there's work to be done, because how do you turn this round? I mean, I would actually really like the job of trying to do it. I would really like that job. I would like to sit down with him, talk to him, understand him as a person, where he's coming from, the comments that were made, try and, you know, figure out where he is now, and try and figure out, like, okay, how do we try and fix this mess? I think it would be a very interesting challenge to try and fix this mess, but I would only want to do that if I believed that he was not a racist and that those comments were isolated comments. And as Hogan has said in interviews, he was at the absolute lowest point of his life when he made those comments. He was really upset and angry with his daughter. We know about the drama that he's been through with his son and the breakup of his marriage. And I'm certainly not making excuses for him, but, you know, he's been through things and nothing can excuse those comments. But I think we can all understand that we've been through times where, you know, you say stuff that you don't really mean. Perhaps he just, you know, was just angry. Again, I don't want to excuse those comments, and I feel like I'm running the risk of doing that on his behalf. But, like, I feel like, would you have him apologize again? I feel like you would have to do something. I feel like even if it was a sit-down interview with Michael Cole, where he actually gets asked questions and he answers them, and I think it's important that he's sincere. I think it's important that he apologizes. I think it's important that there's no woeist me. I think it's important that he does stuff for charities. I think it's important that he helps the younger generations. I think it's important that he adds to his legacy, even at this stage in his life. And I don't think, you know, how is he adding to his legacy? All he's doing is selling things. Stop, you know, you can still do that, but stop personally getting involved in that. Like, you should do other stuff, you know, help people, be a shining light. And I think that if we were to do that, you know, could we see some movements? Maybe not. I mean, perhaps it's all just too far gone, and I wouldn't even want to get involved in any of that if I believed that he still stood by the comments he made. You know, that would be it for me. I'd be out. But if there is to be a role for him, I would want to understand why the comments were made, how they don't apply now, how he's not that person, and then try and figure out how do you show people that, how do you redeem that, like what is the way forward, you know? It's really hard, and it's really, really hard. This is why I said at the start, I feel like there's a mountain that has to be overcome. And I don't know that he'll ever overcome this mountain. I don't know. So, you know, is there a role for him? I would love to say yes, because of what he's done and what he's contributed and how much he meant to so many millions of people. But I mean, he was a cultural figure, not just a wrestling figure. He transcended the sport. He was on the front of magazines. He was on talk shows. He was, I would say, bigger than Roman Reigns, quite comfortably, right? Roman Reigns, I know he goes on to talk shows. I think he might be on magazines. But I feel in this world that we live now, everyone's in their own bubble. Like, really, you don't need to interact or watch TV. You know, you can come home, play video games, and then watch YouTube videos all about sharks, right? You don't need to interact with TV. When Hogan was in his peak, there was only so many channels on TV. There was no internet. There was no mobile phones. There was no social media. There was no YouTube. Video games were around, but not everyone had them, and they were a bit more basic. And so you've got to remember that when Hogan was in his peak, in his prime, everyone was more focused on just a lot less entertainment streams. There was no Netflix, there was no Spotify, none of that kind of stuff. You could still find a way of not engaging with Hogan if you weren't interested, but it was going to be a lot harder to avoid him than it is in this day and age to avoid wrestling. If you want to avoid wrestling now, I think you can do it. Back in the 80s, I don't think you could avoid Hogan. For me, Hogan was more visible, and as a result was a bigger star than what even Roman Reigns is today. I really mean that. I really mean that. I think like Stone Cold, Rock, I think they, you know, were around at a time where the internet was just coming in, but it hadn't kind of took hold at that point. So I kind of put them of a similar level. But I think with Roman and Cody, they're big, massive stars, and the business is doing amazing. But it's just so easy to avoid seeing them and avoid seeing WWE. I mean, you could come home and just watch a different Netflix show every single night, just not interact with wrestling at all. In the 80s, you didn't have any of those options. So, yeah, very interesting. Briggsy said, I've never been a fan really because I started watching in 2009. So my first proper taste of Hogan being involved in storylines was when he was in TNA. I didn't mind him then, and I don't mind him now. I've always respected what he did as a performer for the business. Trent said, it was a dumb move by WWE to get into bed with Hogan after everything he's done over the years, and that's not even counting the racist rant. At the minimum, WWE should not have him come back out in front of the crowd at the most. They should just completely cut ties. Annette said, this is how Booker T feels about Hulk Hogan. Did you see the interview that he did with Hogan? It's in 2019. I mean, I don't know if his feelings have changed, but I did put a link to it because it is very interesting that they spoke about this in 2019, and Booker T kind of shared some of his thoughts on it. And he said that he didn't think Hogan was a racist, but he does ask some questions about that time and about those comments. And I thought it was a very interesting video. I think it's worth a watch. King Flood said, he's an effing idiot, but do I think he's more stupid than nasty? His legacy as a performer should remain because he was a pop icon and a huge part of WWE history, but the person, Terry Bollea, should probably ride off into the sunset now before he does any more damage to his name. Nathan said, I like him, but I understand why people don't. He might be racist, yes, but he has done so much for the business. I'm not justifying his actions by any means, but it hurt my soul hearing him get booed. There's no need to turn him heel. That's like embracing the racism. I get what you're saying. Hulk Hogan belongs in TNA now, said TJF. Uncle Revel said, I've been a Hulkamaniac since I was a kid. I got to meet him in 2013. I don't think he's a bad person. Has he done some wrong or dumb things? Yes. Forgivable things? Yes. He's the legend of the business. I'd hope that WWE could represent him that way, but that's on him. Politics aside, I'm Canadian. Uncle Revel, I really appreciate that. I think it's great to hear from someone that has been a big supporter of Hogan's throughout the years, someone that got to meet him in 2013, and I really appreciate hearing your thoughts on it. LS Dub said, honestly, I would like to see nothing happen moving forward. There is no value in leaning into the heat because it's go away heat. He doesn't add anything unique that any other legend can't add, and he is a waste of space in WWE in 2025. There's no place for him anymore. Alan said, I feel nothing towards him and want nothing to do with him in WWE. Matt said Hulk Hogan wouldn't have been booed in any other place than California. He supported Trump, and LA is as liberal as it gets. Kieran said it's complicated. Like many others, I was a Hulkamaniac as a kid, so I have a soft spot for Hulk Hogan, the character. But Terry Bollea, the man, can get directly in the bin. Going forward, I think they should distance themselves from him, as he's more trouble than he's worth nowadays. Walter J. Deese Rebel said, watched that YouTube video. He never apologizes. He's trying to get references saying, oh, I know this guy and this guy said I'm not. He didn't think anything was wrong until he got called out. The whole thing of, oh, if Hogan was great for wrestling is a pretty flimsy excuse. He has apologized. I think he did in that video that I tagged, but I mean, there's many other videos where he does apologize. I actually watched one earlier, which was from ABC News. I think I retweeted that one as well, where they actually say, like, you know, do you want, have you got a message for the fans? So he definitely did apologize, but yeah, I mean, your point all still stands up about the fact that you think Hogan being great for wrestling is pretty flimsy and it doesn't excuse what he said. And I think that's very, very fair. And it is true. I mean, I'm racist to a point is what he said. I mean, he even referred to himself as being racist. I think he said there's a bit of a racist in all of us or something like this. I mean, the comments were awful. They were awful. Casey Jade said, I can acknowledge what he's done for wrestling without wanting him on my screen. His lies and his racist BS have made him intolerable for me. Trash Paint said, F Hulk Hogan. Wrestling fans since day one said, for me, I forgive Hulk Hogan for the racist remarks that he made a long time ago. The past is the past and we all make mistakes. As for him and WWE, I don't really care. Hulk Hogan is not a legend that I get excited about. When he returns, nothing against him. Aaron said, one thing I wouldn't be doing is turning him heel. That's just a different type of hate. Just give him a pre-tape segment. I wouldn't have him on the show. WWE doesn't need the negative headlines. Thoughts on Pat making fun of it on his show? You know me, mate. I can't stand Pat. I don't watch his show. Anyone that sends me clips, I don't watch them. You know, I don't have any thoughts. You know my feelings on Pat. Craig said WWE and Hogan need to go separate directions. Word of Wrestling said, this is the short version. What are you going to do, brother, when the whole world turns on you, brother? Personally, I like to try and remember Hulk Hogan as the man most of us grew up watching in WWE with Hulkamania, but clearly not everyone can see past the comments. However controversial, he is a living legend, and within the world of wrestling, we should acknowledge his legacy and respect him for it. Is what he said wrong? Yes, of course. Has he apologized? Yes. Was it right for him to receive that loud boo reaction from the crowd? Maybe. But damn, was it hard to watch him stutter and clearly shocked as he states where his tag team that stood by him. Oh, as he states, we are the tag team that stood by him. From a Hogan fan growing up, watching him in his prime, I did feel sorry for him. And that's my opinion. Maybe that's the last appearance. Maybe he turns heel. Either way, he is human. I think all of that is absolutely fair. Honestly, I think all the comments here have been fair. Mark said he got caught being racist on camera. He didn't know was there. It showed his true colours. His apology was that it was taken out of context. It was an embarrassing apology that made no sense. He was racist and he's paying the price for it now. Well done to those that booed him. It was deserved, says Mark. Deadman Talking said, I have never been a Hogan fan. I have always been more of a heel guy, but seeing what Hogan is going through makes me feel for him. Comparing 2005 to 2025 is like comparing 1985 with 2005. A lot of water has gone under the bridge in that time period. We all make mistakes, and we can all hope that we get the opportunity to repair them. The anime nerd said, how do I feel about Hulk Hogan? Well, after finding out that he's racist, I only have one thing to say about Hogan. Na 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 na. Hey, hey, hey. Goodbye. Phoenix Maximus said, he was my hero as a kid. It's a bit of a mess of a human, but cancel culture is BS. Still have a signed Hulk weight belt on my wall and will always be happy to see him doing well. Cody Rhodes, I don't know what this is Jedi. All right. A conservative commentator on CNN said that Hulk should come out to his Hollywood Hogan heel persona, play into the boos. I agree. I miss Hollywood Hogan. Luke's, yeah, but they think it's because he supported Trump. I don't know that they are aware of the full picture. I mean, I've not seen the clip. Maybe they are, but I don't know. I don't know this is heat that you can really do anything with apart from try to repair through good work. Luke said, I was never a fan, even during Hulkamania. There are some very problematic things in his past, though he seems repentant about it. The industry wouldn't be what it is without him, and he does draw some numbers. He probably has a place, but albeit a limited one at this point. Monkey Boy said, he's a racist a-hole. The boos weren't political. Undertaker also endorsed Trump. He didn't get booed. Al said, personally, I don't mind Hogan at all. People make mistakes and they say things they shouldn't. I find it hard to believe those on here commenting about Hogan haven't said some things that they shouldn't. Just that Hogan's gets exposed because of who he is. Explored. Is that a sponsored post? I'm guessing it is. Jason said, I saw Ringside say there were plans to turn Hogan heel next time he returns. Same way like with The Rock. I think these reports are coming from a Daily Mail report, which I don't put much stock in, to be honest. I don't believe it. William said, I forgive him just as God does. In December 2023, he went through his baptism. He made racist statements. He was not a racist. If someone asks God with a sincere heart for forgiveness, who are we as sinners in our own way worthy to judge him? Sinister File said, I said my piece in one of your previous posts. Please refer to that one, as it was a long explanation. There's no way I'd be able to find that, but there's no way I'd be able to get to a previous one. Phantom67 said, I don't mind Hulk. Nothing against the man. CM Chunk said, I think a lot of people hate on Hogan because it's the popular thing to do. Many that hate Hogan still idolize Ric Flair, even though he has used racial slurs and has been accused of being much worse. I genuinely don't know the reaction Ric Flair would get if he came walking out. I think the Airplane from Hell, Dark Side of the Ring opened a few eyes, and I think actually the Ric Flair reactions would be mixed. I don't think the crowd would go crazy. I think there'd be wooing. You know, he's got the woo, hasn't he? Hogan hasn't really got any sort of catchphrase. Oh, well, he's got catchphrases, not ones that the crowd can kind of join in with, like a woo. So I do wonder about Ric Flair as well, you know. There's a lot of allegations out there against Ric Flair, and we are now living in a new era. We're living in a post-Vince scandal era. And I do wonder what reaction Ric Flair would get. It wouldn't be totally negative. He wouldn't be booed out the building. But, I don't know, you are right. There's plenty of stuff. There's plenty of baggage when it comes to Ric Flair as well. Right. DTB. Joey said, hey, Hulk Hogan is never needed again. And honestly, nor is Ric Flair. Just to hammer home the point that we just made. What a very timely message. Ratchet the Owl said, I think it is okay that they let his wrestling history stay in its time period. Ages 12 to 18 barely understand how he was our hero because all they know are the things they've heard him say. Once you get branded a snitch, a shyster, or racist, this generation will cast your ass. Hulk is simply the GOAT. He was on top three, and he was top in 3 different decades, which no one else can claim. His politics and any other beliefs have no bearing on what he meant to the business. Cabbage Patch Cannibal, and I think we'll end it on this one, says Hulk Hogan contributions to wrestling are unquestionable. It would be nice to see him honoured for that, but I think he would be a better fit behind the scenes, teaching younger talent and helping them become future icons. It's if he would do that, honestly, and I wonder if he is considering such things. I'm wondering how he reacts to this, honestly. I'm wondering, if he changes his approach, or does he just retreat to Tampa Clearwater and just keep himself to himself? I don't know. I don't know what the future holds. I would say a lot of comments in there I was expecting. A few positive comments in there as well. People standing by him. I think that I appreciate all the comments, because I think that is a real snapshot as to how the wrestling fans feel. And if you want to understand how wrestling fans feel about Hogan, you ask them. And that is exactly what we've just done there. So thank you to everyone that has contributed. I really do appreciate it. I found this a very insightful video. Maybe not a fun video, but a very insightful video. And yeah, we'll have to see what the future holds for Hulk Hogan and WWE and that relationship. So thanks for watching. Appreciate the support. I'll see you again next time. Bye for now.